Talking before about Oscar and going down in weight, and what a tough job it is for boxers to do that. Now, we were saying offset here, I think Anthony Mundine's last two fights have been his least impressive. I have concerns about Mundine going down in weight. Do you?
I certainly do. I think we saw on the weekend of Oscar De La Hoya, and let's be real here. Anthony is 33. He turns 34 next May. He's not a young fighter anymore. This is the prime of Anthony's boxing career right now. In his last two fights, I have to agree with you. He did look a little bit weak. He won the fights. There was no doubt that he won the two fights. But
and the fact that he got caught against Crazy Kim, that just would never have happened, you know, 12 months ago with Mundine, would it?
We talked about the elusiveness of Mundine, that he's so hard to hit, and that's what makes him so dangerous, that you just can't land any solid shots on him. And he just that little bit of weakness. Now, he might not have noticed it in training, he might not have noticed it during the fight, but it was something that people watching picked up on. And he's talking about going down to middleweight. Now, he's going to fight Shannan Taylor at middleweight. Whether he actually makes the middleweight will be very interesting for me, because if he wants to really go out and beat the WBA world champion as a German, Felix Sturm, Anthony's got to test himself. Can I fight at 160 and be healthy? Because as we've said, going down in weight is very unusual. It's not the done thing. So once again, Anthony Mundine is going against convention. He's trying to do things that other people haven't done before, and the man's proved us wrong in the past, so maybe he can do it again. But I think Shannan Taylor is a credible test. Obviously, Shannon's probably past his best days, but he's still a tough fighter in the ring, and he's not going to give Mundine an easy night.
The fact that Shannan has had such a roller coaster ride through his career suggests that maybe on his night the car couldn't get to the top of the track again, because the late great Bill Morty gave him his rise, and then there was an unhappy ending there. He has had run-ins with the police, with drugs, with a second promoter. Turned to God in the meantime, had big money fights in the US. It is a wonderful boxing story, if I can put in wonderful inverted commas. On his night, could Shannan achieve something miraculous?
That is the beauty of boxing, and that's why we love the sport, for those who follow us so closely, that the impossible seemingly happens all the time, just as it happened on the weekend. People told me, Paul, there's no way De La Hoya could lose. He did lose. People say there's no way Shannan Taylor can win this fight. Only takes one punch. We've seen Anthony go down before. You pointed out about Crazy Kim. We saw against Sven he got knocked out. There is no reason Shannan Taylor can't win this fight. I don't believe he will win the fight. I think if Anthony's at his best, he will win. But in the boxing, it only takes 10 seconds and you can be knocked out.
Well, Shannan Taylor, as we mentioned, I guess he's now, 35, 36, and whilst we know him quite well, we would think that he's beyond his best. Compare a guy like him to a guy like Nader Hamdan, who seemingly was probably Mundine's last real credible opponent.
Well, in the last 12 months, Nader Hamdan was the toughest fight of Mundine, of the 4 fights he had in 2008. And look, Shannan Taylor knows that this is his world title. If it's not a world title on the line, but if he really wants to achieve anything at 35 years of age and go on to something bigger, he needs to beat Anthony Mundine, because if he can't beat Anthony Mundine, well, you know, what other fights are out there for him at 35? So, look, Shannon's got a lot of experience. I know he's going to train harder than he probably has in the last couple of years, because he knows himself. If he wants to achieve anything, he's got to win this fight. He's having it at Wollongong in front of his home crowd. There's a lot of emotion in this fight as well. So I expect Shannan Taylor to come in as good as he possibly can be at 35.
Is it a contrast in styles as well? Shannan Taylor, the brawler, the blaster, against the technically correct Anthony Mundine, who last time fought in Wollongong was pelted with bottles.
Look, it certainly is, and Danny Green tried to work in and use that brawling style on Anthony Mundine, but as we saw, Anthony Mundine at his best is so elusive, he's so hard to hit, and that's why he's been so successful. Now, if Shannan Taylor can maybe close the gap on a weakened Anthony Mundine, and this is the real question mark, can Anthony come in and fight a good fight at 160 pounds if he weighs 160? But, you know, Shannan Taylor needs to close it in and really work the body and turn it into a real fight, and that will be Shannon's, you know, game plan.
You mentioned I'm going to pick a key part out of that sentence there. You said, at his best. Is Anthony Mundine beyond his best?
I can't answer that question, because he hasn't weighed 160 pounds before. In his last fight, he weighed 161 3/4. Now, Anthony's saying that he can make 160 comfortably, not a problem. Well, I want to see it, because I think he can beat Felix Sturm, the German world champion. I don't have any doubts that Anthony can win that fight and become world champion in a second weight class. My only concern about it is, can he do it healthy? Can he be at 160? Now, Shannan Taylor is a good, credible opponent, but Anthony Mundine should win that fight every day of the week. But for me, it's the only question mark is the weight.
Time is ticking on Anthony Mundine. You mentioned Shannan Taylor at 36, Anthony's 33. What timeline would you like to see Coda Nasser map out now for Anthony, and how much time does he have left to achieve what you want to see as his goals?
Well, to be fair to Anthony, his plan for 2008, the big fight was the Danny Green rematch. Danny Green, if you remember, at the start of the year was the light heavyweight world champion. That was going to be the big fight. And Anthony was going to win a world title in a second weight class at light heavyweight. Now, Danny retired at Easter unexpectedly, and he's shown no interest to come back at this stage. So Anthony's team had to remap out their goals. They've talked to Oscar De La Hoya with the help of Russell Crowe. So there's some opportunities for Anthony to crash in the American market, and that's what Anthony's fans have wanted to see. They want to see him dominate the world because he's obviously shown that he's the best fighter in Australia in his weight class. Let's go out and conquer the world like he's always wanted to. So that is, for me, the big fights next year in America. If Coda can do the deal with Oscar De La Hoya to get the fight over there, and with Russell Crowe's assistance, that is the timeline. But as I said before at the start of the program, Oscar De La Hoya, 35. Not many boxers do great things after the age of 35. You've got your one-offs like your Bernard Hopkins, we saw a couple of months ago, fought well at 43, but that's just a freak. There's not many people apart from that who do great things after 35. So if Anthony's 33, turns 34 in May, that's 18 months to 2 years before he hits that 35 mark. So you really want to see Anthony Mundine in big fights next year.
Well, let's hope so, because anyone that is a fan of Anthony Mundine, myself included, we've just been salivating for those marquee matchups, and let's hope that we certainly do get them.
That's right. For boxing fans, it continues this Sunday with a heavyweight bout. Vladimir Klitschko, Hasim Rahman, very quickly. Run us through that bout.
The Rockmans, the former heavyweight champion of the world, Vladimir Klitschko, and his brother Vitaly can seem to be the two top heavyweights at the moment, but Vladimir's got a question mark on his chin. The Rock's still got a great punch, so anything can happen. Live from Germany, it's on Fox Sports Pub and Club, and main event television at 7 a.m, replay at 1 p.m.
Paul, always love having you in the studio, mate, talking boxing, and as per usual, you've delivered a knockout blow. Mate, we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.
Good on you, Paul. Stay with us here on News and Views. Coming up, a huge boost for the Aussies before the first test against South Africa. Also a night to forget for a hapless goalkeeper.